are most of the digital twins useless?
Well, I've been building digital twins for 25 years, and I've seen that. I've been a bit worried about where we're going. Obviously, there's a big debate about what one digital twin is not a digital twin, but I look at how we visually represent and how we interact with it. But this book is not about, it's about how you build a digital twin for human beings. It's not about the IT architecture and interoperability. There's people way above my pay grade and way more expert in that. But I find that most digital twin projects fail because they overcomplicate and don't address the problem. Someone once told me, in the land of the headache, the man with the aspirin is king. And a digital twin at its most effective works when it solves one problem. And then it can be used. So what I've been working on over the years is methods of how to build digital twins. And I've come up with a few metaphors and things to help people. But I think we forget at the heart of the digital twin is a human being, whether that's harvesting the information to populate it or interacting with it. And digital twins have amazing potential, providing delivering information which is relevant to that person. Otherwise, it's just noise. I've seen hundreds of examples on LinkedIn or things where you've got these beautiful 3D models, point clouds, meshes, and basically they're just 3D postcards. They're great to look at, and don't get me wrong, visualization is hugely important, but it could be so much more. And that's why I say, I don't actually say most digital twins are useless. What I do say is they could be so much better if you approach them in a slightly different way.
Mm-hmm. Before we jump into further discussion, can you just claim that like basic point cloud or 3D mesh model is or is not a digital twin?
It is not, in my definition, a digital twin. A digital twin is one where you have the ability to ask the what if question. What if we change the temperature? What if something happened? It has to be interoperable. It has to be a two-way flow of information. And there's nothing wrong with, I would categorize a digital twin or a mesh model as a visual twin. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. It's perfectly useful, perfectly great for training or familiarization, but it's not by the strict definition of what I understand and what the guys who invented the term at NASA devised. A digital twin is something where you can ask the what if question. I can look at data, I can interact with it. Mm-hmm. The interesting thing is a digital twin doesn't have to be a 3D model. It could be a piece of paper. It could be a program. But the thing that makes it easier for people to engage with is when it's allied or the user interface or part of it is a visualization. Now, it's really interesting because obviously we've got point clouds and we've got mesh models, and now coming up on the rails very quickly is the whole field of Gaussian splats, which in a sense to me is the ultimate user interface for a digital twin. It allows you to navigate, but then to click and add information or retrieve information, or actually, I think probably the easiest way to say a digital twin is not a historic document. It should be able to be updated like that. That's really what I talk about. But people semantically, you get drone operators saying, we make a digital twin. And you say, yeah, great. That's the outside, very infinitely thin surface of a building. What about the inside?
Yeah. There are people that have been working within the digital twin fields like dozens of years, because as you mentioned, originally you didn't need a 3D model for digital twin, and you still don't, right? But the whole industry is changing, and we can see digital replicas or digital copies of 3D assets and facilities more and more often. And what I like to say, and I actually wrote it in one of my newsletters announcing this live, that we can consider the digital copy, whether it's point cloud or 3D mesh, it doesn't really matter. We can consider it like LOD0. Like we have in a BIM, for example, you have a LOD0, which is basically just the volume, right? You have zero information, you have zero ability to work with it. It's just the volume placed somewhere. it's LOD 0. So uh, do you think this could be acceptable to consider a 3D mesh model or a point cloud like level of digital twin at the 0 point, like the very stupidest, as I like to say, version of digital twin?
I think it's a good idea. Actually, I think there's definitely people need to understand what the differences are. I mean, when I'm trying to explain digital twin to a CEO or a CFO, and they don't really know what I'm talking about, the way an analogy or the metaphor I use, it's a bit like having an atlas on your coffee table. It's beautiful to look at, but unless I've got an index at the back, I can't find anything. Number one. And the second thing is an atlas also, I can have a map of Great Britain or wherever as an outline, but I can put different layers of information onto it depending on what I want to see. Do I want to see the political boundaries? Do I want to see the mountains and the forests? Do I want to see land use? So you've also got that. So I think coupling this idea of an atlas, but making it things findable, but then your idea of an LOD type 1, type 10. The problem is that if we go down that route, we're going to go down the BIM route of level 2, 3, 4, BIM 4D, 5. It'll just get really confusing. But at the same time, I think that you're onto something. People need to be aware that LOD1 is just a mesh or a point cloud. And then it's a route to something else.
You are right there. However, I still think that it's much easier to explain to them the level of the digital twin rather than to draw them a line what is and what is not the digital twin, especially for people that are not experienced with either of those, right?
No, I think you're right. I think it's a good idea. I mean, it's something I've thought of and a few of us have talked about. The problem is getting everybody to decide on what that LOD is because it will change from country to country, industry to industry, application to application. But I think if you wanted to start a campaign for that, I'll be with you and help you.
Yeah.
Because
And
I think it's really useful for people to understand what you can expect.
Also, unlike the gender and sex, this digital twin is actually on a spectrum. It's not 1 or 0.
Mm.
It's not men or women. It's actually like it can be very simple digital twin from the simple sheet or just the graph, up to fully integrated 3D model with all the live data, you being able to create some simulations with AI and everything else, right? And you cannot say that the simplest one is the digital twin and the most like developed one is also the digital twin at the same level. These are on very different spectrums.
No, absolutely. And you can use them for so many different things. It may well be you just want to use it for mapping a certain thing. And we'll talk
Yeah.
about some examples later on, I'm sure. But I think you're onto something. I think there's certainly some definitions that need to be hammered out so people know what they're buying and also know what they're providing, and there's no argument. Architects in particular, and some people think there's some magic button that you do a laser scan, it converts into a digital twin. Well, it doesn't. You've got to have a human harvesting of knowledge to attach the information to it to make it usable. Otherwise, it's just a pretty 3D postcard. And that by itself might be great in the boardroom, might be great just for training, visualization. But the interesting thing about those sort of environments is they're not very good psychologically to work with. We'll come on to that at some point.
Yeah,
The Tower
definitely.
Twins, I've written it really to talk about how human beings react with a point cloud or react with 3D and how you can help people retain information and view it. Because we're hardwired to think in 3D, but we convert our world to 2D. And also, our brains are much more interested in working in a 2D at a fixed horizon rather than flying like an eagle above our city and zooming around. We get if you study it and you look at it, people get very bored and lose attention after less than a minute of looking at a point cloud because the brain isn't wired to think in that way.
No,
However,
no, absolutely. Yeah.
if you use what I call the gravity button, so you slap it down, make a mesh on the floor, put people's eye line at 1.7 meters, then have a way of negotiating on floor level, people retain that information and understand it much more than flying around a point cloud. It's great to have, the Himalayas or your oil refinery or your oil platform or your hotel or hospital, whatever it might be, in a cloud. But nobody, I always say is if I asked you where you've left your car keys, what you do is you recreate a 3D map in your head and you walk through your house to pick it up. What you don't do is zoom up into the air like Superman, fly around, spin things around, then use your X-ray views to look into the room. That's not how our brains work. So why do we build digital twins? And the first thing we do is grab them and spin them around. I call it the God view. But the God view is great to show how pretty it is in the boardroom, but it's next to useless in being used in human interaction.
I think I might like feel the answer to this question, because my first touch with the 3D was actually when I was doing a real estate agent, and I bought the first Matterport camera. It was like 10 years ago or so, right? And the first time I saw the dollhouse view on the Matterport, that was like aha moment for me. That was the moment when I realized, like, wow, I can see actually in 3D the model of my house or the offices or whatever. So the thing why we are trying to create everything in 3D is because it's something that we don't know, like something unknown, something new, right? Something very sexy to see.
It's really interesting you say that, because although I'm talking about interaction in environments, um, companies like Amazon and other people now are really putting lots of investment and packages together so you can view objects in 3D. So you have this new thing called digital asset management. So companies like one of my favorite companies I work with is a company called Ventana in California. And what they do is they create 3D models that can be put on 3D models of clothes, of shoes, of museum artifacts. So companies like organizations like the Met in New York use them. And the reason they do that is because it's been proved that a 3D model of something sells 3 times as much as a standard photograph. There's a dwell time on the site that is longer. And that's sort of, from a marketing point of view, it works. So why don't we apply that same thing to asset management in our digital twins? There's nothing to say that you can't have a model of a factory, but when you look at that pump, you couldn't use digital asset management to view a massively detailed model of that pump with all the flyaways, and it'll look fabulous, rather than trying to persevere by using a mesh or a point cloud. A mesh basically is a mesh. It's difficult to segment. It doesn't know where the pump stops and the floor finishes. Point clouds are even less useful because you can fall through them. But I see that there is a mixture now of using 3D space as a user interface. But then if you want to know specific information, you can click on that and link to a digital asset management software like Ventana, or there's a few others around, and then look at it in great detail. And that suddenly starts bringing that level of engagement to another level. Another layer of retention, another layer of interoperability and collaboration, innovation, all the great words that we like to use. But I see digital twins as being a hybrid of different technologies.
But that
Gaussian splats. Yeah, sorry, you carry on.
no, that's very interesting what you're saying about the 3D model just being like a sort of an interface, because like 3D is my religion. Like I love doing everything in 3D, but I really cannot imagine the facility manager to actually go into 3D, go into first person view, and just walk or run through facility to find something. This doesn't make sense, right? So he's either going through the dollhouse view into direct point, or in a better version of the digital twin or the digital copy, where he has actually like indexed all the information, all the equipments and utilities and everything else. He just find what he needs to see and just jump directly there, right?
No, absolutely. I think this the word I've been using for the last couple of years is findability. I can have a point cloud, but what if I want to find specifically that fire extinguisher, and then look at when it needs to be recertified? how do I do that? Well, for me, that when you're coming back to this idea of a LOD, so LOD1, but then I need to be able to find stuff. So I need to be able to, well, add tags to things so things are searchable. I need to be able to sort things by time. So I'm basically an asset or an image. You need to know four things. I need to know where on the planet or in the building it is. I need to know when was that taken? When was that 3D model or image or 360 image or whichever facility which you're using? So I can compare things. What's changed? I also need to know, well, what is it? And then I need to know, very importantly, why is it important to me? And that's really where digital twins starts. The very basic part of it is a user interface in 3D so people can see it. Yeah, there's lots of applications where I need accurate geometry. Not as many as most surveyors think. Well, because the market who would use this is not in the redesign or refurbishment or the architects, the mechanical engineers. It's the janitor, it's the asset manager, it's the learning and development manager, it's operations, it's maintenance. All these people could be using the digital twin but they'll use it if we can put on the right information at the right time in a simple way to find it. Because the first time they can't find it is the last time they use it.
That's true. Before we jump forward, I would like to give a shout out to the sponsor of this episode. This is a company called Twinzo, and if you run a factory, warehouse, or production site, Twinzo helps you see what is really happening inside your internal logistics. It tracks, for example, forklifts and material flows in real time, and it turns that movement into clear spaghetti charts so your teams can spot bottlenecks, reduce wasted movements, and make qualified decisions. So if you're interested, reach out to twinzo.com or reach out to Michal Kropec, which is the CEO of the Twinzo. Thank you for that. Now,
it's an example of, I know Michael, it's an example of how you can change the industry by trying to keep things as simple as possible and not overcomplicating it. So you can, my favorite digital twin is one of a housing unit, housing association, where the CFO and the CEO use it, but also the guy in charge of mowing the grass, cutting the grass uses it too.
Yeah.
It's about giving the right information that's relevant to both ends of the spectrum or the different types of role that they would use that for.
That simplification is connected to exactly what we started to discuss with the level of development or LOD, because we are on a spectrum with digital twins. And once you start saying that, we are delivering digital twins, then the relevant person or experienced person will ask you, digital twins of what? Like, you're showing what? You are allowing what? You are simulating what? So the simplicity is coming, for example, with the Twinzo, what we showed. They are not saying that they are building the whole digital twin of everything. No, we are specified on logistics, for example, right? So they will help you track and assess and just see all the information around everything that's moving within the industrial plant or whatever.
Yeah. No, I think this comes down to sort of the fundamental thing that I think about when I'm building or helping people build the digital twins. So I'm a cartographer by trade. I do photogrammetry to build maps. That's why I got into photogrammetry. And I do it interior, and unusually most photogrammetry is outside, from satellites, drones. I do inside stuff. But the main thing, the art of cartography is leaving things out. If you were to map everything, it's just noise and confusion. But the art of cartography is, if I'm trying to navigate by a car, I want to see where the roads are and how wide the roads are. I'm not really interested in anything else I might be passing. But I might be interested if I'm interested in walking, I'm interested in the woods and the mountains and things like that. So you deliver information that is relevant to the user. And with the digital twin, that's quite hard. I see lots of people on LinkedIn and social media talking about interoperability, data silos and merging this and merging that. And you just go, Solve one problem first before you say you can bring everything in. Because I tell you what, I don't know of one person who's actually using it to its full extent. And I'll give you one example. This is one of my favorite examples. So we did I was asked to do a 360 tour, a virtual digital twin. Like, let's call it 2.5D for the sake of, okay. And it was of a paper mill. And the reason the marketing department wanted that is they couldn't do a tour of the paper mill because it's just too noisy. You couldn't hear yourself. So we did that and they loved it, thought it was fabulous. And then the maintenance guy was looking over my shoulder. I was with he said, could you, you've put a tag on that. Could you put a tag on that for all my oil and grease lubrication points? I went, well, yeah. He said, because we need it like now. The previous year, this paper mill had forgotten to put grease in a key gearbox. The drive shaft had broken. The paper machine's still wearing. The carbon shafts flying around all over the place. It did £1.5 million worth of damage, but critically, one of the things it did is it damaged one of the key rolls, which is bespoke to that process. It took them 3 months to fix that. That's 3 months of lost production because they didn't put grease in it. So what we did is we used the same thing. We just tagged all the grease nipples for them and then gave them a little color code to say this grease goes in here, this grease goes in there. And we did a little form that emailed to the stores to say you're running out of this grease. Now, this served a number of purposes. First off, it was insurance, so it didn't happen again. Third of all, it was a learning manual because they used young engineers were given this job for the first month so they could find their way around the machine. And they've never had that again. But the interesting thing about it is now this big paper machine company or paper production, we did this a mill in the UK, and now they want to spread it out amongst the whole global network just for managing grease and oil. That's it. They don't want it for anything else. They just want that. And that is solving one problem. And the cost of that is, it's insurance, it doubles as a learning aid. But now they've had it mapped, then they can apply other layers onto it. For risk assessment or training videos or all sorts of things. Because once you've got the base layer, like an atlas, you can put all sorts of different layers on it.
But this really comes back to our discussion about 3D model being like a hub for all the other information. Because I totally agree with you that if you want to get into door, you should be offering just one simple solution, like the low-hanging fruit, like the easiest way how to show them ROI and something that they could leverage like right away, right, on your client side. But then it usually comes with additions, like, oh, we want to add this and we would like to also do this and this and this. So as a start, you should do the simplest way, like to solve only one problem that they have right now. But your first delivery should be in a way of a platform or a way of a hub which will allow you to add something more because you already know they will want something more.
Well, that's exactly. So 25 years ago, I started a 3D modeling business using Photogrammetry to make 3D models of LNG plants, oil refineries, and things like that. And we got very good at making 3D models. But the interesting thing was the only application people use it for was managing their pipe work. So they attached the welding certificates to it. They attached the NDT. They would have a code in on it to say we need to do X-rays at this period on it. So we used it as it was called Rainmaker Plant Information Systems and sold out many years ago. But that's what we started at, and that's been the key learning thing for me: is don't go in and try and sell that we can do everything with this, because unfortunately that's what some of the LinkedIn people do. Is they say, oh, we can do the link to SAP and Maximo and this and that and this and this, and actually that's the hard part. The easy part is scanning it. The harder part is I a number of why one of the titles you use is why do things fail. One of the reasons things fail is because no one is sat there with a spare engineer ready to go and tag everything with all the information. or pass on or share their information that they have. It's a big commitment from your client to give you that information. And it's very difficult for someone to walk in and give them with a turnkey solution, say, we digitized everything for you. If the salesman says that to you, just walk away quietly
I
because it's
I
not
can
going to work.
Yeah, I can see this as a huge bottleneck because I noticed this already with the Matterport 10 years ago. Like, okay, I can create the digital copy, I can create a virtual tour, and Matterport is selling me the idea like, and now you can tag everything you want. You can put there images, documents, notes, wherever, whatever. And I was asking myself always, like, okay, so if I'm going to scan a whatever kind of a plant, like thousands or tens of thousands of square meters, like who the F is going to tag all those things? Like it's much more work to do compared to me scanning the facility.
And it's a never ending job because a digital twin is only a digital twin if it's updated. Otherwise, a historic document, you might as well. If it's not, if it hasn't noted a change. I can say, for example, if you've got a digital twin of a building and your fire brigade arrives and someone's done an interior modification, they can't get to the fire through that building anymore, then that's not just a digital twin, that's a potential fatality. It's not, it has to be updated. Otherwise, it doesn't get used. And that by itself means, I mean, I've talked a lot in the last year about creating a new job role, what I call a visual knowledge manager, a VKM, because the most expensive, the most valuable thing you have in your organization is its knowledge. But the problem is in any knowledge-based business, they spend 25% conservatively. And this isn't me saying this. This is companies like Gartner and McKinsey and saying, so 1 hour in 4 of your people's time is spent looking for information.
Mm.
Okay. And interestingly, 50% of the time they don't find it.
You have a good terminology for this. What was it?
The search
Search
tax.
tags.
So it's a
That's
search
beautiful.
tax, which is, if anybody's wondering whether they can sell a digital twin to their board or the CFO or CEO, if you walked into any CEO's office and say, 1 day in 5, your people may as well not be working for you because they're just spending their time finding information. Now, if I could reduce that by even a quarter, that's going to impact your bottom line immensely. So why are you humming and hawing about spending £250,000 on getting a digital twin to help your people find information? It's nonsensical. But because people don't phrase it like that, we're not selling digital twins. We're selling time saving, a search tax. We're helping with safety. And the interesting thing is about the whole knowledge management sector is seen more as like a technical taxonomy librarian thing. It's not. It is the oil in your organization. It helps you make better decisions faster. And people don't do that. So I'm a big advocate of what I call visual knowledge management. How do I attach information in context? It's much easier for me if I'm in procurement to be able to click on that and go, I see why that knob is that color. Or to share that with your supply chain, or to put it into a tender document so people can see the situation that they don't have to visit. The benefits of using a digital twin as a center for knowledge management, because that's what I call it, spatial mapping, spatial knowledge mapping. How do I get information in context and searchable?
Can we go back to the search tags? Have you have you actually tried to sell the digital twin or the virtual tour or whatever you were selling, just based on this premise that it will save you tons of time of searching for things within your
I
facility?
have, but the thing about stat and knowledge management, it's not. People talk about innovation and productivity, but they don't realize at the heart of that is knowledge management, and very few companies have a not. I think it's quite interesting. In many Scandinavian companies, for every 100 or 200 employees, they employ one knowledge manager. And their job is to make sure knowledge is available and flips around that organization as easily as possible. Sometimes it's through an intranet, sometimes it's through a Wikipedia or whatever it might be. But those companies are way more efficient. The problem is in the UK, people are just battling against the Excel spreadsheet, the bottom right, what profit they've made. It's very short-term investment. But there are other markets like Australia, Scandinavia, Canada, a few countries, France in particular is interesting, who realize that if they are going to compete against the world market, they have to be able to find and make decisions much more quickly and better decisions. And that means having good information that is available, correct, up to date. Okay, and how do you find it? Well, you can find it using your SharePoint. Okay, but the interesting thing now is what I've been helping people do is link their SharePoint to a digital 3D model. So if I click on that pump, all the emails about that pump, all the instruction manuals that are held in my unstructured information in my SharePoint are suddenly available. Because one of the things we do struggle with is this old mentality based on Internet Explorer, our Explorer, the file folders and the file names. It's all based on that it's only searchable if you have a folder that's named correctly. My pet thing, the thing I spend a lot of time with, is teaching people how to organize photographs. Because a photograph is not like text. You've got to open it to see what's in it. Okay, and we're taking billions and billions of photographs every single day. How do you organize them? How do you make them so they're findable? Well, it turns out you can if you work in the proper way. But imagine being able to link photographs of my plants at different times of the day or year or whatever, and then be able to tag the information to that. So you can say, well, I can know what that pump is because I can see, and I can read its serial number too. You using 3D or imagery linked to 3D is a really great way of finding information. But I still need to be able to have a mechanism for tagging and sorting things. I need to have the index or the gazetteer at the back of my atlas.
But
Without
this
that,
is
it's pretty.
this is again a lot more work on the side of a client compared to just capturing the space, right? If I could use the analogy, for example, with the car, let's call a 3D copy, 3D reconstruction of the side. Let's call it the hood on the car, but the rest of the car needs to be somehow developed, built, figured out, right? And it's a lot much work compared to just creating the final design.
Oh, absolutely. And a car actually is a perfect example of a real digital twin, because basically you've got, you're getting information about the tire pressure, engine temperature, speed, all delivered to you in one user interface. And it's no surprise that the design of that user interface is a really critical part of car design. And having those interactive things and big screens like you get in the EV cars now and stuff, because you've got room. It's a great way. It's a great example of a digital twin in real life.
Yeah, but you still don't need the hood for the car to work, right? But it looks fucking better with the hood. So
yeah. No, and that's the thing is we are, as human beings, we're hardwired to think spatially.
Yeah.
And to identify patterns. We are 1.3 kilograms of predictive engines. That's what our brain are. We are looking to try and predict things to keep ourselves safe. In order to do that, we use our 3D world and the little 1 millimeter outside of our brain to give us spatial context, what we call loci in cognitive psychology. Mm-hmm. And it allows us to put things into context. And it's a bit like, and to prove it, these tricks that people do, they can remember a pack of cards. And they do it by taking a journey through a building. Okay, because that's a great memory trigger. Now, if you have a pretty good, it turns out there are a couple of issues with digital twins. The human eye will recognize when you've got a crap mesh and it looks cartoony, and it will not associate it with it. It doesn't like point clouds because that's not how it sees the world. What it does like is rendered lifelike lighting, 1.7 meters. And that is how we should, in my view, build our digital twin user interfaces. But these are atlases to which we can click a bit of information depending on what we use it for. But you're absolutely right. The critical point with this is being able to identify what is a real problem, solving that. And then when you solve that problem, then you get the next job, which is to attach information about lubrication points. Or one of my favorite ones is, and we'll talk about this, is capturing tacit knowledge, the knowledge that's in people's heads, the stuff that isn't in the manual, isn't in an SOP.
Mm-hmm.
That probably, I mean, if I wanted to make a living out of developing things, that's what I would do. I would just offer the service to harvesting the silver tsunami of people who are leaving industry to collect the information that's in their heads in a way that other people can use.
I would like to do two things now. First, I want to try the poll feature of this live stream. So, guys, I want to ask you, like, we already had a discussion with Barry about the whether a 3D mesh model and point cloud is a digital twin or not. So I'm pulling out the poll where you can vote for 1, yes, 2, no, 3, I like the LOD0 version. You will join the poll just by typing the number into comments. So you can do it right now. Please help us decide which is right and which is wrong. And the second thing, Barry, I would like to go through some questions that we already have.
Okay.
There is one a bit longer and more technical into imagery and separating data sets and more. So I think this one we will leave for your private message to select.
Okay.
I will direct it to you afterwards. Now, Jamie is asking about the source of that 25% time being spent looking for things. Did you mention it was from McKinsey or?
It's from a number of different people. So I've seen it Gartner, McKinsey, a few other people. If you Google it or Chat GPT and then check, is this right? You'll find
It's easily
that
findable, yeah?
it's
Okay.
easily findable. Yeah. I mean, in some cases, the 25% in some industries is conservative.
Okay.
And
Okay.
it's, yeah, in some industries, it's as much as 40%.
Uh-huh.
But let's talk. 25% is a nice, easy figure to think about. And in my experience, this isn't. It's if you say that figure to anybody, they'll go, "Oh, it's way more than that." In our organization.
Okay, I would stop the poll, and almost 90% of the people said that no, it's not a digital twin. So I think we have results. The LOD0 didn't catch up, so
No, we need to do a bit of work on that, I think. But
yeah,
I think you're onto
we will have to work
something.
on
Yeah.
that. uh, Perfect. We have one more question there regarding the 3D Gaussian splatting, but we will come back to that because I think we will dedicate a few minutes to 3D Gaussian splatting as well. So, Barry, what makes you an expert on digital twins?
Ooh. I think because I've been building them, as a cartographer, there's a lot that is transferable from doing maps to digital twins. This is the idea of making them easy to collect the data and how do you harvest the data. Because making a map is not just about aerial photographs. You have to go down and check the name of the road or check the name of the building, which is pretty mundane. But it's you know, if you don't have the name of that pub, I tell you what, an awful lot of people are going to be very upset if they can't find it, especially if it's just won an award for having the best beer. So as a cartographer, there's that. And I think the other thing is because I've been building digital twins without realizing it for a very long time. So the first one I built was for a shopping centre in London. as a retail experience. It was quite fun then, but actually, in actual fact, we were using Unity as the platform. And I remember going to Aarhus in Denmark, and there was about a dozen people working at Unity at that time. So I go that far back with it. And I don't think I'm an expert. I've just made a lot of mistakes over the years, which I don't want people to make. I mean, I see my main role now as sort of being like a coach in digital twins. People out there are very, very good at doing what they do, but like a professional golfer or a tennis player, sometimes you just need someone to give you a bit of a smooth, or to give you a little bit tip. And that's basically what I do. But I think it's because I have maybe it's because I think of it in a different way. I don't sell software. I don't have an axe to grind. I don't have to say we may scan this million points in a second. I'm not really interested in that. I'm more interested in how can we use this technology to better our lives, to make life simpler. And that could be anything from using it for inspection of bridges and tunnels to mapping disability access for people around towns, around railway stations. I mean, this year I've done projects involving tacit knowledge management, harvesting information from people who are retiring. I've done heritage work. We've been looking at deterioration. There's just loads of different things. So I think it's because I've not done one thing. It's not been just oil platforms. It's been glassworks and International Space Station and all sorts of different things. And you're able to pick ideas that work. And certainly you find out what doesn't. So I think that's probably, I wouldn't say I'm an expert. I'm more of an enthusiast who's got a lot of experience in cocking up.
Mhm. When you say I built or I'm building the digital twin, what does it actually mean? Like, what platform do you use, or how do you build the digital twin? On what grounds do you build it?
It all comes down to asking the question why. So I always say, when I'm talking to people, I always ask the question why, probably 3 or 4 times. Why do you need that? Why is that important? No, why is that important? No, why is that important? And then you get down to the real problem, because we're not selling the digital twin without solving the problem. It's just a paperweight on your desk. Okay, unless it solves a problem that is real and valid and you can point out to it, it's not going to do any good. No one's going to get engaged with it. No one's going to say, oh, well, we could use it for this or that. So platforms I use really depend on what we're doing. But I'm guessing that there are plenty of people out there. You've just had, this is sponsored by one of them. There are people like QPix. There is all sorts of Preview 3D. There's all sorts of different excellent platforms out there. I think you just have to figure out, what do I need it to do? In many cases, you don't need a 3D model. You can do a digital twin from 360 imagery, and that's perfectly fine because it's given a 3D context. It's not accurate to a millimeter or a centimeter or even a meter. But what it does do, if I'm doing facilities management, I'm not going to say, well, that light socket behind me, it's 20 millimeters out. No, you just want to know it's in room 203 and it needs fixing. And it's the third one on the right. That's all you need. So the idea of accuracy geometry is not so important to an awful lot of users. The problem has been is that an awful lot of people who bought into the technology are surveyors. I'm a surveyor. I need to put survey control in. But the vast majority of my clients don't care. They just need to go, I need to know how many chairs, where's the fire extinguisher, where's the safety valve? Okay, a fireman going into a burning building is not going to take a tape measure out with him. He just wants to know, where's the emergency shut off for that gas valve before we all blow up. It's that sort of thing that you have to think about. So the platform can depend. If I'm solving a very simple problem, that's fine. But then you can get really complex ones. So if I'm using it to manage the maintenance on my oil platform, there are platforms which are great for that. Because what they're doing is they're using a 3D there, but they're linking it to a SQL database, and that's the point. And the interesting thing, it's the same sort of thing. It's the same sort of system that I would use if I was shopping at Amazon and wanted a pair of black jeans, all it is a visual image, and then you click on a bit to search for stock in my waist size, but it goes to a SQL or an Oracle database.
Okay, so just to simplify this for the audience, when you're saying you're building a digital twin, you are not saying that you are like custom building something in Unreal or Unity or whatever. You're simply just picking the right tool for the right job. Okay, so you
Yeah.
identify problems of the clients to the very bottom, to like the very core of the problem, and then you pick the best solution on the market. Is that
Yeah,
correct?
yeah, sort of. Yeah, I mean, the other question to ask is who is going to be using it. So it's about what do you need it for, but then who is going to be using it? Because you could have a very simple thing. So it could be a 360 tour, like for example, the paper machine. What we did there is put that tour on a tablet, so people can take the digital twin, visual twin, whatever you want to call it, on there and then tag things as they go along. So it's a portable device. Okay. One of the things we don't do is using AR or VR. VR's sort of in digital twins is great to look at, but hardly anyone uses it. That's another conversation. But if I want to say use it for so managing information, knowledge capture, 360 tour with some geometry to help me navigate around is perfectly fine. I don't need to spend a fortune on this. The other key question that comes up is you have to ask yourself 3 questions. Is this a short-term thing? In which case I could use Matterport. Okay. It's a long-term thing. No, I'd never use Matterport for that, because I need to know what my exit strategy is, that I've got control of my data, that I can move it around wherever I want. Okay. I own all my own original information. And I think the third thing is about budget, and that is how big is the problem. You know, you could spend £1 million, but if it's a £100,000 problem, it's not going to work. So it might be simple as let's set up an app on your phone or on your mobile device which works for you. It's about looking at what is appropriate, but then also thinking about the future, because one of the big things, and I talked about this in Prague a couple of weeks ago, is this whole idea of not interoperability, but being able to use data from different places. OpenUSD, which may come on to later on. OpenUSD, I think, is going to change the game for digital twins and the construction sector, AEC construction sector. I'm just doing a model at the moment where I'm modeling a factory and I'm modeling it Rhino, but it connects directly to Omniverse, which is a OpenUSD platform.
Is there any reason why you're not modeling it directly in Omniverse?
And only because Rhino has a lot more drafting, drawing facilities and everything else. But it doesn't matter, because Omniverse, OpenUSD, would allow me to create a mesh model in Cyclone or this or that, an E57, and then be able to integrate them all and use them all without any problems about proprietary formats. Because that's the other thing with digital twins, is if you've got to convert that information into a proprietary format so you can use it and it be hosted in their cloud, that they're happily renting your information back to you, then you're stuck, because it means that the first question anybody should ask about that provider is, what's the exit strategy? How much is it going to cost me to get my information out of that digital twin hosted application? And how long is it going to take? Because who knows, that cloud provider may be bought by your biggest competitor, and suddenly they've got access to all your information. Or you might want to move it internally to your private cloud, or there's all sorts of things. You want to have that flexibility. But naturally, companies want to suck you into their ecosystem. It makes it absolutely, I don't blame them. I just think they should be more honest in many cases about how do we get out of this if we don't want to. You know, we're acquired by something, by another company. They've got their data in another place. We've got now 2 systems that don't talk to each other. There's lots of reasons, very good reasons, for wanting to be able to move your data from one server to another. And I think that's the other question is, and when it comes to selection, in 5 years' time, you may be kicking yourself if you didn't ask that question.
What do you think generally about Omniverse?
Generally. Okay, well, we're getting sucked into a data system there, but I think,
Can I just add to that question?
yeah, sure.
I've seen from because I have not tried it myself yet. I have been speaking to people that are running on it already on Omniverse. I have been speaking to people that uh, were working so far within the Unity or bit of Unreal and hesitating whether to go to Omniverse. At the same time, I see a huge potential of the Omniverse, and at the same time, not enough uh, usage on the market.
Mhm.
Is this your experience as well, or do you see any shift going on? Or
I think it was telling when I asked at that conference how many people at the reality capture conference knew about OpenUSD. A handful of people put their hands up. I
mm,
think it's largely about education, and currently it's not people are ignorant; they just don't know what they don't know. They're too busy, delivering models and point clouds and things like that right now. But I see my role as being a bit of a missionary and saying, look, if you want to make this more flexible to your clients, don't box them in, learn about USD, OpenUSD, and how you can interface that with it. I'll give you an example. So Omniverse has an open connector to Rhino. I've been using Rhino for 25 years for all my modeling. What that means is I can have 4 different people working on Rhino at the same time, updating the real model in real time. It's the ultimate HTML for 3D because it will allow you to bring in, an E57 that's drone or SLAM data from a Chinese scanner or whatever you do, but you can bring them all in the same place. And then you can manage them and attach information to them because you can attach an infinite amount of meta tags to your object, your USD object. You can change variants. You can have a blue one, a black one, just by pressing a button. Because the interesting thing about USDs is it allows us to change things very quickly. Ordinarily, if I wanted to do a before and after, I'd have to do a mesh model before and a mesh model after. I don't need to now. I don't have to import 2 different models. I can reference 2, and I don't have to bring them all in. So for me, OpenUSD has revolutionized film and animation production, where they've got millions of assets in an animation, because that's where it came from. Pixar invented it.
can you just briefly like explain the core features or core advantages of OpenUSD?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's probably easier to go back and explain a bit of history where it came from. That might be a bit of a metaphor and explain. So Pixar in animation have thousands of assets, the single strand of hair, of the prince's hair, the shiny wooden floor, whatever it might be. And you'll have different people working on that asset. So you might have the modeler working on it. You might have the animation. You might have the lighting, whatever it might be. Now, the point of USD was it allows you to work on these simultaneously, but also copy and paste them into different places. That's probably the first one. The second one is it allows you to have multiple variants. I'll give you an example. So say, for example, I'm doing some heritage documentation. Now, the reality of how real that looks is based completely on the lighting that you give it. Okay, so if I've got a bright sunny day and I'm enlightening it from the front, there's no shadows, I get a very, very flat measurement, very flat texture. It will be true, but I'll only see the detail, the tool marks, the chisels, if I use, say, rigged in light or different lighting. Now, ordinarily, if I wanted to do that, I'd have to do 2 different models. Okay, and I could use whatever technique I'm using, but I'd have to do 2 different models and import those to view them side by side and click them and then view. Boom, 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 boom. With OpenUSD, it's a single variant. So I click it and then it brings the lighting model in. So it allows me to just referencing. I'm not importing things. I can bring a massive model to my desktop. I don't have to import everything. It's a bit like a HTML page. Okay, if I'm building a web page, I get the copy from one area, I get the text from another area, I get the video with a link to my Vimeo or YouTube. It aggregates them. Essentially, that's what OpenUSD does. It allows us to aggregate information. And it will take information from all sorts of things. For me, the most exciting thing, I guess, is not very sexy, but it's about how do we preserve this in the future? The beauty of OpenUSD is that it doesn't matter if it's an E57 file now or it's an E96 file in 10 years' time, which is different. It'll still be able to use both. So there's a forward compatibility with this. We're not at the behest. If JPEGs change tomorrow and we've got rid of them,
What makes you claim this?
just because I've spent a lot of time studying it. I've been writing about it since I found out about 3 or 4 years ago. Because the pain for digital twins for me has always been data from different places. So I make a Rhino model and I'm using a point cloud, and then I've got a CAD model, and then I've got a photogrammetry mesh model. How do I bring all these in? So I was looking at a way of doing that. In fact, I mean, I'd go so far to say is that, I mean, although I habit the geomatics industry, I don't think I've learned very much from the geomatics industry in the last 10 years. Most of what I learned is going out to the film effects business and finding out how do they manage these massive models? Because we see people ooh and ah over a drone model of a church, and you go, have you not seen Lord of the Rings? It's like, the film industry is doing so much more with spatial imagery than we ever dream of. We get excited if you can zoom in and see a photogrammetric mesh and you go, oh, isn't that pretty? Yeah, but we only do the outside. We don't do the inside. They do the inside as well. So what I've been doing is stealing, borrowing, learning from the film effects business, and then bring that back into reality capture workflows. You have to keep up to date with, what's going on, the latest scanners, the latest SLAM devices, drones, this whole 360 anti-gravity thing, which is just amazing. Going into Gaussian splats gives us a sense of tools and things, which reason I don't retire is because it's too bloody exciting. I'm getting tools I dreamed of when I was a little boy doing that. And now they're here for me to play with. But having that palette of tools and knowing what are the limitations of each one is when you say, why am I an expert in it? It's just because I've tried them and I know what isn't appropriate. And so you can make recommendations, because the people who are commissioning these don't know what questions they should be asking. So I've got in the back of my, I'm just writing this book I've written is a dynamic book, because you write a book about digital twins and by the time the ink's dry, it's obsolete because there's so much going on. But in the back of the book, I'm writing 100 beautiful questions everybody should ask about digital twins.
How the AI and how the 3D Gaussian splatting as a new way how to reconstruct the reality, how does it work or will work with the digital twins? Let's maybe start with AI if we can.
Well, the thing about AI is I use AI quite a lot in reconstruction of models. And, if I'm trying to get rid of a bike on a wall, then I will use generative fill in Photoshop to get rid of that. The issue is, am I compromising the ethics of the model? Would I do it in a crime scene? No. Would I do it in heritage documentation? Probably not. Or if I did, I'd mark that area with a mask to say this area has been regenerated by AI. The problem is that AI is removing trust in all sorts of things. And in fact, I'm just writing a post about exactly this. Reality capture is about capturing reality. It's not about inventing shit. You can use it to make it more usable.
But at the same time, the meshing technique in photogrammetry is destructive process, right? So we are trying to reconstruct the reality, but at the same time we are like damaging it and destroying it.
Yeah, I think it depends on what the application is. If I'm using it for inspection of a bridge, I might use meshing AI to help me navigate around the bridge, but I'm not going to do a report on degradation based on the mesh. I'm only using that to click on the photo that was used to generate that mesh. So I don't mind using AI in those things to make it cleaner and to make it more usable, providing people know it's actually the image that was captured with the drone or the camera that you use, because that's an all-alterable. The interesting thing is what's happening with images as well now, because you've got camera companies now embedding code into the images, so you know it's not been tampered with. This is particularly important in if you're doing digital twins of crime scene or collision, because you can't be accused of, oh, we scraped out that blood spatter or things were. In most law, I mean, most court cases in the world, the first thing people want to do is create some doubt on the evidence. Okay, so you have to be able to prove that the images that we used were captured in RAW, this is the code, and they weren't adulterated. If you have that traceability, it's perfectly fine. AI can be used for different things, but its main use at the moment is in object recognition, in tagging things. So,
That's the shift I wanted to make, because you started to explaining where the AI is in the capturing and processing process, but I was actually asking about the on output side of the
okay,
capturing,
no,
right?
that's a
So
fair point. And I think that's where we are seeing AI come into its own. Yeah, but you do get these weird things. I relate a story. So I work with a great company in Canada called Cone Labs, who have a system for identifying cracks and then seeing how the cracks have grown over a period of time using AI. It's brilliant. And then they're structural engineers, so it's come from a structural engineering knowledge base. Then you've got other techniques. So now Microsoft and a few other companies have got these segmentation techniques to identify a glass or a this or whatever in the photograph. What it does is it allows people to take out the mundanity of the work. And it's interesting because I showed this crack detection system to a bridge inspection company. Okay. And this is one of the biggest bridge inspection companies in the UK. I'm not going to say their name because this is sort of typical of the industry. So I showed them this technology, and all the engineers, 40 engineers in the room, loved it. So we don't have to go on site and look at all the cracks, and we're going to get 360-degree coverage, and we're able to share that data with our colleagues and figure it out, and then see if the cracks changed. And they're all excited. And then the guy in the corner stood up, and he was the business development director. And he said, do you know how much money we make from hiring out scaffolding and lighting to do this inspection? It's 30% of our turnover. Room went quiet. And this is one of the problems you've got with AI. What people don't realize is that all those people, you've got chartered engineers, and all they're doing is looking at photographs, looking at a crack. Wouldn't it be much better for them to say, we've got all this expertise, let's try and design a solution or to do this. We can use this information, but I'm not wasting all this expertise. I can get that out and use it to provide a better solution for the client. We don't do that in the UK as much as we should. We are very Luddite. We are innovation IT. We are the largest innovation prevention department on the planet, I think.
but you agree that business development manager should have been fired?
I would fire him because
Generally, like being able to make it X times easier to collect the data, to assess the data, and to create verified outputs, it actually makes it more feasible. So it's not going to be only like top 10% of the projects. It actually will be 50% of the
No, I
market.
think this sort of sums up the whole problem many people in the world have got with AI. They think it's going to eliminate the jobs. It's not. It's going to create more work, in my view. There are going to be jobs, yes, it does, but it's going to mean that you don't have specialist radiologists looking at mammograms when they could be doing much more productive work. If they can automate that process, perfectly fine. I think the key is trying to. If I'm using AI to regenerate a model, I need to know. I'm happy to take it, but I need to know which bits were regenerated. So there is a level of confidence or doubt about how accurate that bit is. But that is the problem with AI, is because we don't know how much of it's wrong or right.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the point about keeping it simple. You can say, things like cracks are pretty unambiguous as to what they are. But how things change, or things that there are things that doesn't work with just yet, but things are coming on. And I think AI is a fabulous tool. I use it pretty well every day in my image processing, and certainly in helping me sort through big lumps of information, a PDF of data handed over from the BIM department as a handover document. It's a bloody nightmare. But you can use AI to look at the things that are important to the facilities manager, because the facilities manager isn't interested in a Revit model. I don't know a janitor in the world who opens a Revit model to find a leak in a pipe. What they need to know is, I'm in the basement, 3:00 in the morning. Where is that shut-off valve for that pipe? That's the sort of information they want. They don't need to know it's clash detection and it was tested to this and that, or is the drawing of it. They're not interested. They just need to solve an immediate problem. The nurse needs to know where's the nearest defibrillator. The fire responder needs to know where's the shut-off valve and which is the quickest way out. And the emergency responder needs to know where is the lock-in room if there's a shooter out there. Where are the people safe? It's that sort of basic information that people want, but we try and over-engineer the IT because the engineers who build it are engineers and they love solving problems. And sometimes that problem isn't a big problem.
I was always saying that for the future, I'm not afraid of AI to know everything because Google already knows everything, but I'm afraid of it understanding everything, right?
Yeah.
Because it's two different things to be able to say from the photography that there is a boy with the ball, but actually understanding what's happening and that the guy from behind him is going to attack him or whatever connected information is there. That's something strange and interesting for the future. One thing I wanted to point out and maybe give a shout out because next week I'm going to have a live podcast episode with one company that is actually providing AI solution for digital twins, and they are able to use basically all kinds of data like from 360 images through Matterport, 3D Gaussian splatting, meshes, point clouds, whatever. And when you are walking through the space with the camera, they are able to, in real time, they are able to track where you are standing in that facility, for example. Right, so they are able to create like spaghetti graphs and everything else from the positioning of that camera. So guys, maybe just if you are interested, it will be next week. So here I'm posting the link for the registration. I will be posting about it on LinkedIn and in the newsletter, so you will know about this. But still, if you are interested, you can join next Wednesday this webinar. Barry, how deep are you into 3D Gaussian splatting?
A lot more than I talk about on LinkedIn. There's
A lot
some,
more.
yeah. I mean, it's something I've been working with quite a lot, but there are better people higher up the pay grade than me doing it. But I'm really looking at it from a different view in terms of not so much into data acquisition, because there's people out there, Mindy with the portable cam and 360 imagery and all sorts of fabulous programs out there, and it's changing on a daily basis. The main thing I try and keep an eye on is the sort of at the leading edge of it. So I go to things like SciGraph and I want to know what's coming. And the interesting thing about Gaussian splat is just the speed of development. It's not just a pretty thing anymore. It is, can we attach data to it? Can we attach geometry to it? Can we do other things with it? That's really what I'm interested in. The Gaussian splat as a user interface is mind-boggling in terms of what it can do. In fact, so much so, I mean, since Gaussian splatting, I want to change my name as the original photogrammetrist to the original spatial imager, because it's not just about, it's got everything. Now I teach everything to do with photogrammetry and image capture, 360, geotagging photographs and Gaussian splatting. The secret for me, though, is it all comes down to the quality of the image you would put in. Okay, if you've got shit cameras and if you're out of focus, your Gaussian splat's going to look naff. If you don't understand, bright sunshine can affect it.
Do you remember the first commercial from the NVIDIA about the NGP, instant NGP, the first nerves? they were using or claiming to be using only 4 images to create a perfect 3D model of the girl with the camera. You remember that
Yeah, yeah,
video?
yeah.
I think this has done so bad marketing to what we are actually trying to do.
Well, I think
Because
that,
as you
yeah,
just mentioned, like if you put shit in, you will get shit out. Like 3D Gaussian splatting, no nerves. It does not mean that you are good. Like you're not good with shitty images. You
yeah,
should
no,
be using the
yeah.
same workflows like you are using for the photogrammetry.
I believe so. I mean, I have a different view. I prefer to have my view is I prefer to use quality in, quality out rather than shit in, shit out.
Sorry.
Because no. And the reason for that is because it encourages people to focus on the quality of the image, and because quality image, you need to. It's that's something I try and get into people's heads. If I'm taking a photograph, like a 360 photograph, and the sun's behind me, everything's going to be overexposed. You can't use that. But if you know how to do HDRI imaging and bracketing and do that, you can cope with it, then you can use that very same image in any sunshine condition and get a perfect Gaussian splat. But the problem is, and I've seen this saying, you get a drone, you fly it, you get your SD card, you run to Pix4D or Metashape or whatever your flavor of photogrammetry is, press a button and you're disappointed because it doesn't work. Okay, you need to slow down. You need to slow down. Speed isn't everything. Quality sometimes makes a big difference. So, I mean, I come at this from two ends. One, from the quality of the imagery, and that's really what I've been teaching for the last 5 years. But the other bit is, what do I do with all these images? How do I use them? There's one point that's like giving someone a keyboard and saying write a novel. It's just not the same thing at all. You've got so many things you can use it for. But I think the whole Gaussian splatting thing is, first off, people don't realize it's not quite as easy as you'd think. But the results are spectacular. And it's not really mainstream. But to be honest, you've had companies like 3D Vista, 360 Tour, they've had Gaussian splats for the last 2 years. Yeah, now you've got, we now can do Gaussian splats. Whoopee shit. Catch up, boys. Loads of people are doing the ability to view them. What is really sexy is to use that as an interface so I can merge data. So imagine a Gaussian splat, and then you've got a photogrammetry mesh or a reality or a scanned mesh in between. So then you can overlay them and click on that mesh and tag it and use that information, but you haven't got problems with reflections or water or all the other stuff, and you can flow through it. That's like the ultimate atlas. Okay.
I'm always saying that the 3D Gaussian splatting is not to replace like either point clouds or 360 pictures or 3D meshes. It's another layer.
Exactly. I
It's a
think it's just
gift.
it's like,
It's a gift from coders to us, like to be able to even more deliver to our clients, like another layer of the reality captured.
it is, but it also has an impact on other things. So it alters industry. So we've met up at Geo Business and the Geo Business shows into Geo and things like that. Can you imagine if you're doing a topographic survey and instead of just giving a 2D layout, you give a Gaussian splat of the site at the same time? How much more useful is that to the architect or the developer, the marketing person, the guy trying to get planning permission, the public, all sorts of things? And the interesting thing is it's really easy to do. It doesn't cost a lot. You can do it with a $500 camera or less. You can do it with your iPhone if you choose to do it with your iPhone. You can build it up, but it's a simple way of allowing precision data to be done now. I mean, if I was a surveyor, I'd be studying the socks off that, because unless I do that, I'm going to be a dinosaur. Because
That's
other
very true.
people will be showing you and going, we've got a 2D topo survey and there's a Gaussian splat to show you the condition of the road. And when they say vegetation or wood, it's actually showing you the plants that's growing there. I mean, and we're out there, surveying industry's out there with all the equipment to capture that. But it's obsessed with accuracy and 2D lines, which is perfectly fine. But there's a much bigger audience for the data that you're capturing they just want to deliver to a CAD pilot.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's like that part of the market. The market's massive.
Since you are speaking about digital twins today as a main topic, I would like to do a callback to what you were saying before,
Okay.
because you said you said something that the digital twin does not care about like absolute accuracy. Is that correct?
Yes, I'd say generally speaking, the only people
Okay.
who may want to use it for that are people doing refurbishment, re-engineering, brownfield engineering.
Okay, we're not speaking about like further use cases for the digital copy. We are just speaking right now about digital twin and the either point cloud or 3D mesh as a part of the digital twin, as we called it before, like the hub for the further information. So it does not really mean whether it's 1 millimeter accurate or 1 centimeter accurate, because there are other important things about the
There are certain provisos with that, and the thing you
yeah.
have to think about which is, if I've got buildings with multiple levels, what I don't want is a digital twin that twists. I
Of
need
course,
to see things in
but
context. So, in terms of surveying things, there's a certain level of accuracy you need, but it's nowhere near the accuracy that your scanner, your RTC, your Faro could deliver.
right now the callback I wanted to make is to connect the necessity of digital twins and the accuracy necessity of the digital twins with 3D Gaussian splatting, because one of the biggest biases towards 3D Gaussian splatting is that it's not accurate and you cannot do measurements on it. And where I see the biggest potential for 3D Gaussian splatting, like beside the VFX and all these artistic things, I really think that in technical way, the digital twins could benefit the most from 3D Gaussian splatting.
I think so. I think that is probably the biggest thing, and I think we're well on the way to being able to get measurements out of things. Particularly about 4 or 5 weeks ago, OpenUSD announced support for Gaussian splats. So suddenly, you've got the ability to insert a Gaussian splat onto your Omniverse stage, and also connected XYZ coordinates of objects or whatever it is. Do you need to get the geometry from a Gaussian splat if you can locate it and you've got the point cloud as well? And just use the point cloud. I think in terms of usability and realism, I mean, it's one of the things that VR hasn't really taken off, is because most of the VR content was pretty shit. The brain looks at it and goes, "This isn't real. It's a cartoon." It just doesn't ignore. It just ignores it. And that's why you get that nausea thing. It was one of the reasons why VR is great if you are happy to use it, but not really great if you don't, and certainly not on site. The more interesting thing, I think, is where this comes with Gaussian splats being used in AR. So you've got a pair of goggles, you're on a site, you can see things, or your phone, or whatever it might be. And I think this is where an awful lot of this technology is coming together. But the problem is people look at it in different silos because that's the way they've been trained. It's actually, no, this is something new. And it's a bit like, I say people say, "Is photogrammetry dying?" Yeah. Unless you need it for something specific. Okay, is it going to be replaced by Gaussian splats? For many applications, absolutely. But the key for that is, the key skill that I think people need is the ability to use a camera correctly and to process the images. That is a core skill everyone who works in reality capture, Gaussian splatting needs to master. Whether that's video or whether that's stills or whether it's 360, understanding your camera is the key to everything. Because without that skill set, you're always going to be compromising and someone's going to be doing better. You see, a good photographer is going to kill a geometric surveyor because they understand the camera.
Right at the beginning, I was mentioning that you were the guy who was using delight procedures and 32-bit photogrammetry before it was cool. Do you know what's the reason why, or maybe I'm wrong here, but do you know what's the reason why there isn't like a one-stop shop, like one-click solution for delighting procedures of images?
Yeah, it comes down to the sensor, the dynamic range of the sensor. So the human eye can see around about 24 f-stops of light. And an f-stop is a doubling or a halving the amount of light. Most camera sensors only see about, at best, 14 to 15. So the camera sensor can only capture part of the available light. So what that means is the brightest bits are overexposed. It doesn't get them. The darkest bits it doesn't expose. Now you can do that by using what I call 32-bit photogrammetry, which is bracketing and increasing the sample size. So you've got 24 or 32 bits of information, but it's in one image that you can use. The problem with it is it takes a bit of time to do, and people are too busy. They just don't get that you can improve things amazingly well. I can almost always tell a 3D model just by looking at it, because if they haven't done any work on the image, it just looks flat and boring. If you change the image, like changing the midtones and the contrast, it not only helps the accuracy, but it makes that model pop. It looks more real. But the thing about getting rid of shadows or clipping for details that are overexposed is huge. You know, if I'm trying to do windows, or I'm trying to do bright work lights, or 360 and it's a sunny day, yeah, you can't just go and do photogrammetry. You have to wait for an overcast day, because there's people in the south of France and Mexico, it'll never happen. So what I taught was how to overcome that change in light. And you have to start thinking about 3D capture as a photographer, not as a bundle adjustment, RMSE, you know, that's part of it. But essentially we're capturing light. That's just capturing geometry, and laser scanning and stuff, LiDAR, SLAM, perfectly great at that. But if I want to turn that into something that is more usable and recognizable, I have to capture the light as well. And that's a skill that surveyors aren't taught anywhere. There's no university course in surveying that talks about HDRI imagery that I know of, or 32-bit photogrammetry. So it comes down to the sensor and the limitations of that, and also the fact that most LiDAR manufacturers build everything around LiDAR, and the camera's an afterthought to colorize. So you get silly things like, oh, let's put an Insta360 on top of our laser scanner to make it comparable. Why not build in a camera that's good enough, like Regal did? It's just,
You're speaking from my heart. I have mentioned this like thousands of times.
yeah, no.
Please, guys, if you are making me pay like 60,000 euros for the laser scanner, would it hurt to put there quality sensors that would cost like 1,000 more? You can charge me 5,000 more, and I will be happy to pay that.
No, exactly. I've been saying that for years and years and years. And it's like, so, I mean, I haven't scanned anything for a long time. I normally get other people, if I need it, other people to scan for me. But I will spend ages photographing, getting great quality 360 imagery or photogrammetry imagery, and then spending a lot of time. When I say a lot of time, if I spend more than half an hour on every 1,000 images, then I'm doing too much work. This doesn't take a lot of time to miraculously improve what your digital twin looks like. And the interesting thing is I can put one of my twins against someone else's and they look completely different, but it's only half an hour's worth of work to make it that better and understand what I'm trying to do. It's the whole image processing thing is something that people just don't appreciate. They get the slider to get rid of the shadows and they don't go, there's so much more you can do. And particularly when you use the same thing for sorting and categorizing your photographs and tagging them to make life easier later on. It's all part of the same process. And I think that's the two parts, image processing and managing those images that you're using as source data. Quite often you've got all these photographs just going to waste, but the close-ups of that crack, that's exactly what someone needs. Okay, but you don't give it to them because you want to sell them a mesh model and it looks pretty. Well, what's it for? Just so I can fly around and make myself look pretty and I know where the birds peck or whatever? No, try and add information to that. This is the thing. You can build so much more useful stuff, but don't overthink it and don't over-engineer it. My advice to everyone is find one problem and solve that. Because when you solve that, then other people will ask you to solve their other problems in that organization.
From the top of your head, is there a low-hanging fruit, like the first thing you know that most of the, I don't know, like offices or industrial plants are suffering? Like if I'm doing laser scanning, what could it be the easiest way how to upsell it to a digital twin, not only to a point cloud or a mesh model?
There's thousands of examples. I mean, one of my favorite ones is what's happening in New York. So there's a company called Mapped In, and they do 2D or maps, immersive interior maps. And what's happening in New York is the New York Police Authority have asked them to produce 2D models for their emergency services. So if they go to a fire, they've got a layout of everything. They know where the valves is, where the fire escapes are. And they're investing in that because they see it as insurance, but also because they feel they've got a moral responsibility to do it. So I think public safety and I think disability access, these are things we would like to use digital twins for, because I'm really keen in those applications. I'm looking at the social. In the book, I talk about who are the forgotten people of digital twins, who are the forgotten users. It's not the maintenance manager. It's it's a teaching and learning person who's got to show these apprentices how to get out of that place or where this particular boiler is. It's that sort of familiarization, safety training. Those sort of things are where there is low, because the interesting thing about that is you don't have to worry too much. As soon as you start adding accuracy into it, you skyrocket the cost.
Mm-hmm. I think this is the right spot for you to brag about your ebook. So please give yourself a shout out.
Okay.
Give us a brief info about the ebook.
So I've written this book called The Tower of Twins, which is sort of a play on words. It's not really, it's sort of a handbook for how to build digital twins for human beings. There's lots of people out there talk about IT interoperability, breaking down silos and stuff, and that's great. I mean, you've got to do that. But the key for me is, what do we use digital twins for? So I've written this ebook. It's about 100 pages of using hopefully simple metaphors you can use to explain to people what it is that you need to do. But it talks about the principles of what technology you use, about harvesting. How do you persuade that person who's about to retire to give you all this information? Okay. It talks about some of the applications, and this book is, because it's moving so fast. It's sort of, if you get this book, then you automatically subscribe to, every month there'll be a new chapter talking about new kit or new technology and a case study, a real case study of real things, not marketing bullshit. Oh, we could do this. No, this is real solutions and real war stories. The thing about the book is that we'll put a link on somewhere. It's a pay what you want book. Okay. And the reason I've done that is because I get some information from you. So I get your email address from that, because you need that to download. But the other thing is to start it off as a conversation. This is 40 years of photogrammetry, cartography, and 25 years of digital twin cock-ups. So you don't have to do it. And I don't see anything out there. There's an awful lot of content that's written by providers and equipment providers. But obviously, I'm not saying they're lying or anything, but they're going to focus on the thing that makes their bit, more sizzle on the steak, as they say. And what I'm trying to do is get under it and talk about the human nature of digital twins, what it's going to mean to us. It talks about the future in OpenUSD. There's a couple of chapters on OpenUSD, its history, how it's going to work. And it's sort of like a starter conversation. So it's a pay what you want, download it. If you download it for free, you can always come back and buy another copy, and buy me a coffee if you want to, or somebody paid $500 for a copy. And the reason he said that is because you have saved me. You have set me up in a new business, because I'm now able to have conversations with my clients. I didn't even know about this stuff. So that's what it's for. It's my contribution as I get old, pass it on, pay it forward. But being perfectly transparent, it helps me with my coaching business, because that's what I do. I coach people on building digital twins.
Barry mentioned before that very soon you will stop doing the scanning on site and delivering the scanning projects.
Yeah.
So what's your mission for next, let's say, 5-10 years?
5-10 years. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's very encouraging that you think I've got time. Um,
The medicine is doing miracles now. So
it is. It is. I don't know what it is. It's the gin and the fishing, I think. No, I'm backing away as much as I can from doing operational work, data capturing work, because A, it's boring. B, I know how to do it, and I'm more interested in sharing what I know and passing it on. So my big thing, I love writing and I love teaching, and so that's really what I'm doing. The idea is to try and be people haven't got time to do the depth of research that I would have. You know, you're just too busy running your reality capture business and scanning the shit out of stuff. And trying to build people for it. You haven't got time to stand back and go, why are we doing this? Or could there be a better way? And that's really what I'm trying to do on people's behalf is go, I don't work for a vendor. I don't work for software people. I'm not trying to sell anything except my time. And yeah, I want to be able to do a bit of work, do the research, go fishing and, and call my girlfriend or whatever it might be. But there's all sorts of things that I would like to be able to do. But it's more about, I've reached a point in my career where I don't want to build an operational survey business. I've been there, done that. I'm more interested in sharing what I know and trying to find answers to questions that people have. Sometimes they haven't got time, and I may, if I don't know it with my network, I probably know the person who does.
Okay, so just to be clear, you're not retiring entirely. So if people need coaching, mentoring, and advice, you're here, right?
That's really my job. I mean, that's the thing I love doing. I love talking about this stuff. I love getting into the nitty gritty of things and coming up with different solutions you may not have thought of. And yeah, sharing the mistakes I've made over the years so you don't have to. I've made lots and lots, and we learn from other people's mistakes, providing they're happy to share them. Most people don't want to fess up. Oh, no, we didn't. Oh, yeah, they won't tell you about their mistakes. Yeah.
Barry, it was a huge pleasure to have you here to speak to you. Thank you so much for doing this.
That's my pleasure. If anybody wants to get in touch with me, there'll be details to share. You find me on LinkedIn, I'm sure, if you want to DM me or ask me any questions.
Guys, if you joined here and registered here, it means you are already in my newsletter. So I will make sure to put the link to the book in next edition of the newsletter. So don't worry about it. You will get the link.
Yeah, and just keep buying me coffees. That's fine. Just every little bit helps.
Perfect. Thank you, Barry. Thank you very much, guys, for
Thanks
watching.
everybody for standing by and listening to an old git. Really,
have a
an
great
old
day.
gangster. All right. Okay. Bye-bye.